Evelyn Hope, a name now synonymous with tragedy, wasn't born with a silver spoon or even a deep-sea diving kit. Her connection to the ocean was almost primal, a whisper from the waves calling her long before she even knew what an orca was. Growing up in landlocked Arizona, far from the crashing surf and salty air, her fascination was almost an anomaly. While other kids dreamed of becoming doctors or astronauts, Evelyn dreamt of the deep. She devoured books about marine biology, National Geographic documentaries becoming her Bible. The vibrant coral reefs, the mysterious creatures of the abyss, the sheer power and grace of whales, it all captivated her. It wasn't just an interest, it was an obsession, a burning desire to understand the silent world beneath the waves. This fascination led her to a small community college with a surprisingly robust marine science program. It was there, surrounded by others who shared her passion, that Evelyn began to truly blossom. She excelled in her studies, her natural aptitude for understanding animal behavior shining through. But it wasn't enough to simply study the ocean. She needed to be in it. That's when SeaWorld San Diego entered the picture. For Evelyn, it wasn't just a theme park, it was a gateway to her dreams. An internship there would provide invaluable hands-on experience, a chance to work with marine mammals up close and personal. She saw it as a stepping stone, a necessary evil perhaps, to a future spent protecting and conserving the oceans she loved. Now, let's be honest here. SeaWorld has a complicated history. We all know about the controversies, the documentaries, the accusations of animal cruelty. But for Evelyn, at that time, the allure of working with these majestic creatures outweighed the concerns. She genuinely believed she could make a difference, that she could contribute to a more ethical and humane environment for the animals in their care. And when she met Nairos, everything changed. Nairos wasn't just another orca, he was a legend. A massive bull orca, older than many of the trainers, with a reputation for being unpredictable and even dangerous. He was a powerhouse of muscle and intelligence, and, in his eyes, Evelyn saw something else. Other trainers kept their distance, wary of his size and temperament. But Evelyn was drawn to him. She saw past the reputation, past the massive frame, and recognized a profound sadness, a loneliness that resonated deep within her own soul. She started spending hours observing him, studying his behavior, learning his subtle cues. She spoke to him softly, not with commands, but with a calming, reassuring tone. She approached him with patience and respect, treating him not as a performing animal, but as an individual with his own thoughts and feelings. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Nairos began to respond. He would surface when she approached, his gaze following her as she moved around the tank. He seemed calmer, more relaxed in her presence. A connection began to form, a bond built on mutual respect and understanding. SeaWorld, of course, recognized the potential in this unique relationship. Evelyn and Nairos became their star attraction, the poster children for the park's conservation efforts. They were marketed as a symbol of harmony between humans and animals, their performances drawing massive crowds. Promotional videos showed Evelyn smiling radiantly, her hand resting on Nairos's massive back. Behind-the-scenes footage showcased their seemingly effortless connection, painting a picture of idyllic trust and companionship. They were selling a fantasy, an illusion of perfect harmony, but behind the carefully crafted PR facade, a more complex and troubling reality was unfolding. Evelyn, caught in the spotlight, found herself increasingly torn between her genuine love for Nairos and the demands of the entertainment industry. The illusion of trust at SeaWorld was a powerful one, carefully constructed and relentlessly maintained. It was a world of perfectly choreographed routines, upbeat music, and beaming smiles. But it was also a world of confinement, of unnatural behaviors, and of mounting pressure on both the trainers and the animals. Evelyn, initially hopeful and optimistic, began to see the cracks in the facade. She witnessed the subtle signs of stress in the other orcas, the repetitive behaviors, the aggression towards each other. She started to question the ethics of keeping these intelligent and social creatures in captivity, forcing them to perform for human entertainment. But she was trapped, bound by her contract, her passion for Ross, and the illusion of making a difference. She clung to the hope that she could somehow change the system from within, that she could advocate for better treatment and improve conditions for the animals in SeaWorld's care. She tried to believe that her connection with Nyros was something special, something that transcended the artificial environment in which they lived. This belief, this hope, this illusion of trust would ultimately prove to be her downfall. Because while Evelyn poured her heart and soul into her relationship with Nyros, she failed to see the warning signs, the subtle shifts in his behavior that hinted at a growing discontent, a simmering rage that lay dormant beneath the surface. She wanted to believe in the fairy tale, in the perfect harmony between human and animal, and in doing so, she blinded herself to the very real dangers that lurked beneath the waves. She didn't understand that some wounds run too deep. The ocean has its own heart, and it will not be tamed. SeaWorld was a symphony of carefully constructed realities, a place where nature was not just observed, but meticulously managed, molded, and presented. A world of controlled splashes, synchronized leaps, and unwavering smiles. But even the most carefully orchestrated performances have their dissonant notes. And for Nyros, those notes were growing louder, more frequent, and more alarming. The truth, whispered in hushed tones behind closed doors, was this: Nyros was deteriorating. The vibrant energy that had once characterized his performances was fading, replaced by periods of listlessness, unpredictable aggression, and a disturbing detachment. He was losing his luster, and SeaWorld, ever vigilant about its image, was desperately trying to keep the cracks from showing. Imagine a rubber band stretched to its absolute limit. That was Nyros' years of confinement, of forced interactions, of being reduced to a performing prop, were taking their toll. He had become a caricature of himself, a shadow of the creature he was born to be. But SeaWorld, driven by profit and unwavering in its commitment to the spectacle, seemed determined to ignore the obvious. The dollar signs in their eyes clouded their judgment, blinding them to the desperate pleas of a magnificent animal in distress. One of the earliest signs was Nyros' increasing resistance to training. He began to ignore cues, refusing to perform even the simplest maneuvers. His movements became sluggish, his responses delayed. He would linger at the bottom of the tank, staring blankly ahead, seemingly lost in a world of his own. These weren't mere bad days. This was a pattern, a clear indication that something was profoundly wrong. But SeaWorld dismissed it as mere stubbornness. He's just being difficult, they'd say. He'll come around. The trainers, caught in the crossfire of corporate pressure and genuine concern for the animal, found themselves walking a tightrope. They were expected to maintain the illusion of harmony, to keep the show going, regardless of the cost. Some trainers, like Evelyn, tried to advocate for Nyros, voicing their concerns about his deteriorating condition, but their pleas often fell on deaf ears. Management, more concerned with ticket sales than animal welfare, brushed aside their warnings with platitudes and empty promises. Increase enrichment, they'd say. Give him more toys. Rotate him into a different enclosure. As if a few plastic balls and a change of scenery could undo years of psychological damage. The truth was, SeaWorld was ill-equipped to deal with the complex emotional and psychological needs of a creature like Nyros. They saw him as a performing asset, a revenue stream, not as a sentient being with his own desires, fears, and traumas. And as Nyros' behavior grew more erratic, the pressure to perform intensified. The summer season was fast approaching, and SeaWorld needed Nyros to be at his best. The advertising campaign was already underway, billboards plastered with his image, television commercials promising thrilling displays of athleticism and trust. Canceling shows was not an option. It would mean disappointing thousands of paying customers, jeopardizing lucrative sponsorships, and tarnishing SeaWorld's carefully cultivated reputation. The stakes were simply too high. So, the show went on. Nyros was pushed harder, his training sessions intensified, his performances meticulously choreographed to mask his increasing disengagement. But the cracks were widening. Nyros started exhibiting signs of aggression, snapping at trainers, slapping his tail with increasing force, and even lunging at the tank walls. These incidents, often dismissed as accidental or playful, were clear warning signs that Nyros was nearing his breaking point. Behind the scenes, the tension was palpable. Trainers walked on eggshells, their smiles strained, their movements cautious. They knew they were working with a volatile animal, an unpredictable force of nature that could turn on them at any moment.